Hi everybody, I hope you're all well. It is a proper gloomy autumnal day today. So much so, it is nearly 9:15 in the morning. I've got all my curtains open, I've got my windows open, getting fresh air in, and it is so dark in this room. I've had to put my lights on to be able to film this video. So yeah, it's autumn is properly here and I am loving it. I'm an autumn winter girl. I will take this over, really hot, sunny days, summery days in a heartbeat. I love it so much. So it's been a couple of weeks since you've seen me. I've been, working and such, really getting into diamond art painting. I've completed 2 now and I'm just starting my 3rd one. And yeah, it's really helping me focus and such, and dealing with the stresses of work and such. And I am so super excited because the day after tomorrow is the new Cormoran Strike book, The Running Grave. It's going to be finally here, and I'm working tomorrow, but the rest of the working week, those 4 days, I am not working whatsoever. I'm going to go to town mega early on the Tuesday morning to get to Cheltenham to get my copy, which I can get for free because I've got £20 worth of money to spend on my Waterstones card. So yay! And then I'm going to buy myself some good food from Marks and Spencer's, bring it home, and then just read for 4 days. It's going to be so epic. I'm so excited. But yeah, I've been watching various things, all that kind of thing. Just I've been not reading as much over the past 2 weeks, just simply because work's been very intense. There's been a lot of stuff going on and I just haven't had the energy to read. So having diamond painting to do instead has given me the ability to focus and get my mind off work and such, which has been really, really great. And yeah, I've just been, carrying on as always. But anyway, I am here to talk about the book I have been reading over the past couple of weeks, which is The Distant Hours by Kate Morton. So this has been a very interesting read, because if you know Kate Morton, if you know her fandom, her reputation, as it were, amongst literature and everything, if you know her reviews and that, you know that Distant Hours is the cursed book. It's the one that most people dislike of her books. Let's put it that way. It's an interesting one, so I'm here to talk about it. So let me get my words right. The Distant Hours is her 3rd book, so she had been already established, and so it's a book where she follows her formula, but unfortunately it hits back at her, in my opinion. Now, what I did to keep track, I have written down the 6 Kate Morton books that I have copies of, because she's published 7. I haven't got Homecoming. 7 was published right at the beginning of this year, I believe. So yeah, I haven't got hold of that yet. So we've got The House of Riverton, Forgotten Gardens, The Distant Hours, The Secret Keepers, Lake House, and Clockmaker's Daughter. So Riverton I haven't started yet, and here's how it kind of goes with my like-dislike. So Forgotten Garden, like. Distant Hours, sorry, it's a no from me. Secret Keeper, yes. Lake House, yes, but it was more of a like, not a love, but still a tick. And then Clockmaker's Daughter was the one where I tried to read it and I couldn't get into it, and I decided to come back to it. So I am giving that one a second chance, because I just couldn't get past like about 50 pages. But I was like, no, because I was in a weird headspace that week with work and other things. I was like, you know what, let's just, yeah. So I came into this not knowing what to expect, just as with her other books and such, just see how it goes. And unfortunately, it was a big, massive cross. I have gone with the masses that this is by far her worst book. Now let's talk about it. Let's break this down. What is it actually about? So it's set in two time periods. We've got the 1940s and the 1990s. And in the 1990s, there's a woman called Edie, and her relationship is broken down with her partner, and she's visiting her mum, and she hasn't told her mum and dad yet about her relationship breaking down. And she's sort of, that day she's going to tell them, and they're making Sunday lunch, and there's a knock at the door, and it's the postman. It's like, well, it's a Sunday, you don't deliver posts on the Sunday. That's very weird. And it turns out it's a letter that has been delayed by 50 years, which is for her mother. And it was found in an attic of a postman who had kept this bag of letters, and it had been stored in his attic for 50 years, and he subsequently died, and his family found it, and so the letters are now going back to the people who they were posted to. And so her mum's got this letter, and she opens this letter and bursts into tears, and Edie's like, what's going on? And her mum explains it's from a friend of mine from a very, very long time ago. And it comes from a castle. And what had happened was that when she was young, Edie's mother had been evacuated out of London and sent off to the country to live in this castle with three sisters, a set of twins and one younger sister. And various things happened in this castle, and Edie gets drawn to the castle, where she finds that all of the sisters are still alive in their 80s, and she tries to unravel the mystery of events and such that happened in this castle. So that's the story. Now, why didn't I get on with it? Unfortunately, right, Kate Morton has this thing where she does multiple time jumps throughout her books, because she's always got a past and a present that's always happening, and sometimes she has events that show the in-between, but also she has some times where she goes even further back than the past section to be able to answer questions about a certain character, some things like that. And she does do it in this one as well, of course, but unfortunately in this one she over describes things. She spends a lot of time talking about the atmosphere and talking about buildings and crumbling architecture and things that are in rooms and all that lot. But she doesn't actually have that much dialogue. She wants you to understand what a room looks like rather than what's happening in the room in this book, which is highly unusual for her, because in other books that I have read, both before this was published and after this was published, she's very much focused on the action. Yes, she's very atmospheric, but it's like there's only so many times that she can describe the castle that very much reminds me of Satis House from Bleak House. No, sorry, not Bleak House. Ugh, I get my because of house, so my mind went Bleak House. No, from Great Expectations, I mean, Miss Havisham's house. There's only so many times that you can describe that before it gets pretty ridiculous. And yeah, so I'm just like, okay, page after page after page of description, but nothing is actually happening here. And when things did happen, it just kind of felt like, why? So I kind of have to reveal a little bit here, but just a teeny weeny little bit. So in the past, there is a whole thing to do with one of the sisters and being cryptic for the people who have read the book who know what I'm talking about, the blood. And it's like, okay, right, you could possibly think that, but it's something else, right? And when the something else was revealed, it was like, what? Things became nonsensical And I don't like that. I really didn't like that. It kind of felt like she was great at doing the build up and then it just fell apart. And the ending is so abrupt. It just kind of leaves you hanging there. It's almost like say, for example, you go see a film, let's say a horror film, because of the gothic kind of element of this book. Okay, you go see a horror film and you get to like the final action sequence and our protagonist, our lead protagonist, is like running away from the killer or whatever, and it's like, will they get there, cuts to black, and then the credits start. And that's what it kind of felt like for me with this book. The way this book ended, it was like, why, what are you doing, what I just felt like every time I felt like, right, Kate's on track, writing in this chapter, building up to something great, she would just suddenly throw it away. And it was so frustrating. I don't know if it's because there are so many characters involved in this one, and thinking back over her other books, even though there have been a lot of characters involved, and especially I want to mention The Forgotten Garden, because there is loads of characters in that one, she was able to balance it correctly. And in other books she's had smaller cast of characters to play with, so maybe that made it, as her books have gone along, her number of characters have gotten smaller. But it just felt in this one, it was too all over the place. It was, too much description, not enough dialogue. And as I said, the build up to things, it would just suddenly collapse. And it just, the more I read it, the more I got frustrated. And it's like, no, I should be enjoying this, and I'm not enjoying it. This is why I can't give it a tick, but I can't put it as, when I say books that I just don't get along with, that just have no substance whatsoever, I call them beige books. It's not a beige book. There is a lot of stuff in here. It's just not been executed well, in my opinion. And it's just, it was so frustrating. So I have this kind of like weird thing with it, that I get what she's doing. I get her playing with the structure as she does, as she did, should I say, because obviously this was published years ago. But it just didn't work, and I think that's why this book is just known as being the bad Kate Morton book. It's not so diabolically bad that nobody can get along with it, because there are 5-star ratings out there for this book. But for comparison to her other books, she has done so much better with this kind of story and this number of characters since this was published, and also before this was published. So it does feel like perhaps this is a bit of a one-off. And the fact that my list was tick, cross, tick, tick, it kind of shows that there is, that I have been happy, even though that second tick was for The Lake House, and I did like it, but I didn't love it. It just felt like this is the dud book. This is the one that I would definitely say that if you're a fan of, if you get into Kate Morton, you might want to skip this one. And I feel bad for saying that, but it's just one of those. It's just one of those ones where the story, the balance, the structure, it just didn't fit together. And, fair play to her for writing it, because it is a very interesting story. And I get that she wanted, because the thing is that the stuff in the past, usually when there is they go into the past and trying to find the answers and all that lot, it relates to one person. But in this case, she's got 3 people. So she has to, well, technically, not 4, maybe 5. If I'm bringing in, you know, other characters who I'm not going to say because of spoilers, but yeah, so when you've got up to 5 people that you have got to write all of these intriguing twists and turns for, it is so easy to get lost in the balance and the structuring, I think. So I think she was a bit over ambitious perhaps with this one. So I am not saying that what she did was categorically bad, because it's not. It's just when you bring it all together, it's a bit muddy. The water's muddy and quite sorry, I just realized the irony of saying that, because the 3 siblings, as I said, you know, in the country in Kent, their father was an author of a book called The Mudmen. So me saying it muddies the water, you know, yeah. It just felt that she did something that was a bit over ambitious, and I'm not saying that she doesn't have the talent to do those things, because she's proved that she does. It's just sometimes you have to know where the limit of the line is, and she didn't. For me, she didn't see where the line was. So I'm not gonna put down for writing this book, but I am gonna say that for me, I have to join the masses in going, this is not her best book whatsoever. But I am in no way going to rip her apart and say that the story was terrible, because it wasn't, or that the characters weren't believable, because they weren't. You know, it's just the structure. It didn't work, honey. It didn't work, I'm afraid. At least for me, it didn't work. And as I said, but that's not going to stop me from recommending. I just, you know, because there are a load of 5-star reviews out there. It's just unfortunate that the 1 to 3-star reviews outweigh the 5-star greatly. Let me put it that way. If you have a look online, you can find them. So yeah, it's just one of those awkward books that just didn't quite work for me. So there we go. That's what I'm going to say about Kate Morton's The Distant Hours. So my usual questions. Would I read this again? No, I don't have any want to read it again. And I don't see... it sounds bad to say, but I'm going to say it. I don't see the point of reading it again. Because you know how, like, in her other books, like The Forgotten Garden, you know, and such, where I was like, I really want to go back and read it again and see if I can pick up on things. And the reread of The Secret Keeper was a really interesting experience, even though it had been like 10 years. I was starting to remember things that I'd forgotten. I'm like, oh my God, yes, how that links to that. And it was such an enjoyable experience rereading that, simply because of knowing what I knew, even though it had been so long since I'd last read it. And I feel like if I were to read this again, I wouldn't have that excitement. I would have the, oh yeah, this is the, and it would put a bad taste in my mouth. So I don't want to read it again, simply because I don't want to have that bad taste in my mouth. There we go. Would I read any more of Kate Morton's books? Well, yes, of course. I mean, like I said, I've still got The House of Riverton to read, and I need to have another go at The Clockmaker's Daughter, which is back on my TV Red list, and The Homecoming I'll need to get as well to complete the collection. So I'm not going to stop reading Kate Morton just because I didn't get along with one of her books. And you can't universally love every single book an author has ever published. I say that knowing that I've loved every book that JK has published, but you know, let's just let's just talk about that another time. But yeah, it's just that thing that I just didn't quite get along with this, but it's not going to stop me reading Kate Morton. Would I recommend this to anyone? As a standalone book, I'd say no. But if someone was reading Kate Morton's books, I'd say just be aware The Distant Hours isn't her best book at all. But if you want to have a still go with it, have a go with it. But I just didn't get along with it. That's what I would say. So I wouldn't stop them from reading it. But yeah, if it was just this is the first book of Kate Morton's that you ever pick up, I'd be like, oh, there are much better works in her collection to read. So I would definitely, yeah, if it was the first Kate Morton, I would steer them more to be like The Forgotten Garden or The Secret Keeper, to be able to introduce them to the absolute marvel that is Kate Morton's writing. It's just, yeah, unfortunate The Distant Hours is just a bit of a dud. So there we are. Those are my thoughts on Distant Hours by Kate Morton. If you've read this book, I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment in the comments box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, tell it to you side. And yeah, I'm going to be back with my next read, which if the next Cormoran Strike book wasn't coming out in the day after tomorrow, it would have been Tori Telfer's book, The Confident Women. But instead, it's going to be The Running Grave, the new Cormoran Strike book by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling, and I am beyond excited, guys. I can't wait. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. Oh, I'm counting down the minutes, the hours until Tuesday morning, where I'm going to get on a bus mega early to get me to town to go to the Cheltenham Waterstones to get it. I mean, last time for the Ink Black Heart, I got to Waterstones I think an hour before the shop opened, and that might happen again. I don't know, we shall see. But yeah, so super excited for Tuesday, and I will be back with my review on that as soon as possible. All right, then. Bye.